Hi, Jessica Ball with the Jessica Ball team at REMAX Traders Unlimited, and I want to have a quick chat about putting yourself in the best position as a buyer. So that means pretty much what does it mean to have your ducks in a row when going and purchasing a house? And when the market gets tighter in a sense and is turning into more of a seller's market, which actually it doesn't even have to be a seller's market, and you could get into a bidding war with someone else, or someone swooping with another offer on your property, or just even if there's no other bids on a property. If you don't go into it with some knowledge and education and understanding of the process, it's going to be stressful. And so my goal here with this is to alleviate some of that stress, let you know what to expect, what you can do, what homework you can kind of do to put yourself in the best position, because you're probably making a big financial decision for you and your family. A lot of times purchasing a house is the largest investment, financial investment that people make. And so you want to go into that with confidence and knowing that you are, what your options are, knowing that you came in with some of that knowledge and understanding and educating yourself along the way. So thanks for watching this video, because you're educating yourself on the process. So the first thing is talking to a lender and getting pre-qualified or pre-approved. And financing is going to be a whole other video, and you can watch that because there's so much to unpack with financing, and that tends to be one that people like to just overlook, and I'll be like, oh, have you talked to a lender, are you pre-approved, pre-qualified, and a lot of times people like, no, we'll get that when we find the right house. If you wait till you find the right house, you are already too late, essentially. And for many reasons, because there's so much more than just getting that pre-approval letter that goes into the financing thing. We need to know, you need to know really some specific details about your financing before we ever step foot in a house. And there's some big reasons for that, which again I'll go over in another video, but you are selling yourself short and kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you don't understand those different options in the financing, and how financing can also affect an offer. Types of financing. Oh yes, types of financing, because the seller does see what type of financing you have, how much you're planning on putting down for a down payment, type of loan, like I said, all those, they get to see that, and they get to compare that with other offers if there's other offers. So that's really important to understand your financing and kind of know the strength of your financing as well. And again, we'll talk about that. But there's a lot to unpack with there, which, for example, like what type of financing you can have, what type of loan, that's really important, because there's way more than one type of loan. There's a lot of different types of loan. There's a lot of different grant programs out there. What do the grant programs mean if you qualify for one of those? What are you subject to sale, which means do you have to sell your house before you can qualify for a loan at a certain price, and what is that? And also looking at the range for what you want your mortgage payment to look like. A good lender is going to talk to you about that. Hey, what is your comfort level for your monthly payment? Because taxes and insurance is built into that, and so that also depends too what you're qualified for in one area, even a local area. We need to maybe watch the taxes for, because of you could be qualified for, say, a $200,000 house, but maybe we need to keep the taxes under $8,000 or whatever it is, because if your monthly payment would go over more than what you are qualified for. So depending on the taxes in the area that you want to be in, we need to look at that and see really what your buying power is for that area, and what your lender says about that. And I am happy to make some lender recommendations of some great ones out there that I work with, and that work really well with their clients, and really give them that information so that they feel empowered when they're making their decisions about financing. And there's also certain houses that can only accept certain kind of financing, and I'll go into that too. So it's really important that you got to have your financing. You got to know that before we ever really look at a house, because you don't want to fall in love with a house that honestly the bank won't support you in purchasing. If you're paying cash, awesome. Cash is obviously a great way to go, and sellers love that because less contingencies, which I'll talk about contingencies in a second. That being said, we also probably need to see, or not probably, we do need to see proof of funds. We need to know that you are qualified. So let's say, I have $100,000 cash to purchase a home. Okay, but that may not necessarily need, we can spend $100,000 on a house. There's going to be closing costs and whatnot. So we need to talk about what that looks like as well. And you may not want to spend all of that on there. And so we'll talk about what that really looks like. And we'll also talk about from the financing too, what down payment looks like, also what closing costs. Maybe the lender suggests that we ask for closing costs as part of an offer. And so that's a big one. And that's also something as far as the strength of an offer. Let's say, for example, you want to purchase a house, $150,000, okay? And maybe you're a little short cash on hand. And so the lender says, okay, you've got enough saved over here for your down payment requirement for this type of loan, but really we probably need to ask the seller to cover, up to $3,000 in closing costs. And depending on the loan, and also depending on the year, or not year, but the when in the year that we're making the offer, sometimes closing costs can kind of change depending on what tax prorations and things like that. And so that's why talking with the lender is so important. And it should not be something that's just shoved to the back burner. And so with closing costs, so $150,000, what you're approved for. And then let's say, this lender recommends up to $3,000 in closing costs. So let's say you find a house that's listed at $145, and you love it, and you want to make an offer of $140, and you're going to ask for the seller to pay up to $3,000 in closing costs. So what you need to consider here is if your offer is $140 and you're asking for $3,000 in closing costs, really your offer is $137, because the seller's going to take that and they're going to say, okay, the $140 minus the $3,000 that they're wanting me to pay, my start of my, net is going to be $137, because then that seller has a bunch of closing costs as well. And we can discuss what that looks like from a seller standpoint too, what closing costs they have. And so you just need to know with your offer what that looks like. If there's another offer that's $140 and you're $140 but with $3,000 in closing costs, those are not equal offers. And so that's something that we'll need to talk about. And it's okay to ask the seller for closing costs. We just may need to adjust for that. Maybe it's $143 with the $3,000 in closing costs or something, along those lines. And so, so there's closing cost, lender, things to talk about. The other thing with the loan, too, is you'll hear the difference between pre-qualification and pre-approval. And sometimes you'll even see on lender letters, it'll say pre-approval, but really it's not a true pre-approval. A true pre-approval is going to be where you have submitted your information, maybe your tax documents, your pay stubs, all that kind of information to the lender in advance and gotten a bona fide, you are pre-approved. We just need to find the house. We have gone through all this extra stuff. You've turned all that information in. That's going to be more powerful to a seller than a pre-qualification letter where it just indicates that maybe your credit has been ran and they went over verbally what your assets and liabilities are, your debts and assets are. And so and from a seller standpoint, they're going to be maybe a little concerned of okay, well, I've heard a lot of things falling through with finances. If I have an offer here of someone who's already turned in all of their financial stuff and the bank has looked at it and approved it versus someone who maybe they just ran their credit and they have really good credit and they just verbally told their, assets and debts, maybe there's something they're not including on here. Maybe they forgot something. It's not verified necessarily. They haven't verified the employment. They haven't looked at the taxes. So there could be issues over here, and a seller is going to feel better about something that has the full-blown pre-approval. It's not contingent on as many things. When you look at what your pre-approval letter is contingent on, there's going to be a list of things on there. And so sometimes it may say verification of this, verification of that, verification of that, blah, 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 blah. If there's a way that you can reduce that list of things and get those things verified by your lender, that's going to put you in a stronger position, versus a letter that says verification of, employment within, so many days of closing, and verification, which right now during COVID-19, it's July when I am recording this, July 2020, and they are doing extra employment checks. You know, they do it at the beginning when you apply for the loan, then they do it so many days before closing too, just to verify you are still employed, just because we're having obviously a lot of economic things going on in the country right now. And so they're doing some extra checks. And so if you can reduce the amount of like verifications and contingencies on that letter, that's going to make the seller feel better and more secure. And you should feel more secure about that as well, because hiccups can happen, and the more that you can do and the more confident you can feel in your financing as well is important. And sometimes it takes a while to find those documents. You know, it's like, well, shoot, my taxes from last year, where did I put those? Are they online? Are they in a folder? I gotta find them. And so it takes time to find those. And when you're busy and, you know, maybe if you do the pre-qualification route, and we make an offer, gets accepted, we go under contract, we're making a lot of decisions, getting inspectors, we're getting inspections done. If we're doing that, you're starting to pack, you get to apply for your loan within so many days, and then they're going to give you a list of other things that you need to turn in. So there's a lot going on right then once we're under contract. You're all excited about, you know, this new house, and so you got house brain, and that's all you can think about. And so that's a thing, by the way, house brain. So it's important to have your ducks in a row beforehand. Have that stuff ready. Talk to the lender. Hey, what can I turn in? What can I do? What can I upload? What can I send to you? And get yourself in that better position. Why would you not want to put yourself in the best possible position to win at this and to feel confident at this? And if you do miss out on a house and they take another bid, you'll know I did everything I could on this. You know, they just chose someone else's offer. And, you know, other than, you know, the feeling like, oh gosh, I wish I would have known some of this and whatnot. Let's know it. Let's go through this. Let's take the time now instead of jumping into houses to really get you in a position where you have your best foot forward in this situation. So we've talked about financing. Let's talk about some of the other, so price, obviously, that's a big one. That is really, it's going to be up to you, what you offer in price. I can supply comparable properties so we know what's sold in this area, maybe what expired so that it didn't sell, what's active competition with it. How active is this house? I mean, if it's out on the market one day and has had 10 showings, we're probably going to be in a multiple offer situation. And we really need to talk about coming in with our highest and best offer. Because with multiple offer situations, you don't always get a second chance. They may not even call for highest and best. In a situation not too long ago where we knew there were some other offers on the table, 4 or 5, came in with one offer. And the agent said, hey, I might call for highest and best, waiting for one more offer to come in, start to get prepared for that. Right after that, all of a sudden, I think another offer may have come in that was really good and the seller couldn't turn it down and wanted to sign it and get that done and start that process. And so, told, hey, no highest and best, we've already accepted another offer. And so that can happen. And a seller has a right to do that. They don't have to respond. They don't have to let us know. They don't have to do any of that. And I'll do another video on multiple offers and what that looks like, and what a seller can and can't do, what an agent can and can't do, what to expect as a seller, what to expect as a buyer in a multiple offer situation. And so you want to put your best foot forward from the get-go. And then also what you want to do is lost my train of thought there. I was on a roll, rambling. So we talked about price. Yes, price. Closing date. So closing date is important. If you have a very specific closing date, we'll put that one down. If you're flexible, we'll also mention that as well. And a seller can counter the closing date as well. Nothing is set in stone until we've signed the dotted line, and then even some changes have occurred. Even particularly with closing dates and delays and things like that. So it's kind of sometimes it's a moving target with closing, and so there's a lot of factors that go into that, and we'll talk about that as well. So there is something to think about though, particularly if a house is vacant, but not always. I mean, it can be if someone's in there and they're motivated to get out, they have someplace to go. Sometimes the person who can do the fastest closing is the one that wins, because every day that a seller owns that property is more utilities, tax prorations, if they have a mortgage and interest on there, and so that adds up to them, and so that's important too. If you can close, sooner, we could say that, we should say that, versus having a closing that's really far out. Also, from a seller standpoint, something that's really far out worries sellers. They're like, a lot can happen in all those weeks, that things. People can lose jobs, people can, lose money, I'm worried about this, where the shorter, from, a seller standpoint is, there's a minimal amount of time, for things to go wrong. And so they consider that when they're looking at offers. And so something to think about. And then also, with earnest money. So earnest money is the amount that you're willing to put down with your offer, so that, it's a legitimate offer. You're putting some skin in the game. And we'll talk about earnest money. Actually, I'll just talk about it right now. Earnest money, no, I'll talk about it in another video so I can keep going here. So we'll talk about earnest money, but that amount, what amount you want to put down there. And sometimes, higher earnest money amount speaks that you are very serious about this. So watch my video on earnest money, and we'll talk about that. And putting your best foot forward there, because how much you're willing to do on earnest money or how much you can do on earnest money does also speak to your ability to close. Sometimes sellers do sometimes take that into consideration. So again, another video. Another thing that you want to consider is the condition that the house that you want to take it in. Are you willing to take it as is, to a seller that is music to their ears, that you want it as is? If you want to do as is, no inspections, the seller's in love with you. They would love that, because you're just removing some contingencies and worries from them. Now, the flip side of that, as a buyer, you may not want to assume those risks. A lot of times I tell people, unless you're a contractor and you know what you're doing, you probably need to have an inspection to know what's going on with this house. And so there's, with the contract, and that's the other thing, take the time to read the contract. I'll send it to you. We'll go over it. I'm gonna highlight some really important language in there that you want to read through. And we talk about the condition of the house, and we talk about inspections in that contract. And you're signing that contract, keep in mind. So it is probably a good idea to read it in advance, because when we're rushing to write that offer, you're gonna be excited or nervous or whatnot, and reading through the contract then for the first time can be a bit overwhelming. So it's a good idea to have read through it at least, and we've worked out some of those questions that you have or concerns or whatnot. Or if there's something specific about a property, maybe we need to talk to an attorney about changing something with the contract, or adding something, or an addendum that's unique to your situation, that we can have time to do that. And we've done that before. So that's really important to know. What does this contract say? What's it binding me to? What's the seller have to do? All those things. That's really important for the contract. So there's a spot where we check, as is condition, or as is with, reasonable working order for everything. We expect everything to be in reasonable working order, and if there's going to be something with an exception, such as maybe there's a whirlpool tub, just had this one, where the whirlpool's never worked in this house while the seller lived there, and so they said, hey, I don't know of any other defects, but I know that whirlpool tub doesn't work, so we'll put that on there in advance. So when we go in there as a buyer, we're looking at it, they noted on here whirlpool tub doesn't work. We know that, so we're putting on here, we know it doesn't work, so we're not expecting that to work on the day of closing. And so we write that in there. So you'll select whether you're okay as is condition. We'll talk about what that means. Or, yes, I understand it's a used house. It's gonna have some nicks and bruises, and it's gonna have some things that need maintenance and repairs and things. And I'm buying a used house. So, but we expect the furnace to be working on the day of closing, or we expect the air to be working, you know, we expect electricity to work and outlets to work and things like that. And then we expect water to not be coming out of the ceiling because of a plumbing error, you know, plumbing leak or something. So there is, you know, those expectations. And so you need to decide what you're comfortable with, what you want, and put it on there. And then, and also if you do as is, you're saying, you know, even if I do inspections, which that may be allowed, and we'll talk about that, you know, I cannot submit a repair amendment. There is a couple caveats to that, which we'll get into in more detail later, probably on another video, because inspections and repairs is a whole other topic we dive deep into. So that being said, so, you know, what condition you want the property in, okay? And we'll talk about that more in detail. And I can usually tell what people are most comfortable with when I meet with them and talk with them. And if schedules, if we need to meet like this, where we're doing a Zoom call or a Google Hangouts or whatnot, I think Facebook Messenger, oh, it does, because I did this the other day with a client. You could do a Facebook Messenger chat live. So we could do that too, if that's easier to chat and talk. And then, so the condition of the property. Then, you know, some of the other things is, you know, are there HOA fees, things like that, annual dues, something like that from the area. We need to know what those are on the property. But that's not really necessarily something about putting your best foot forward. That's just more, I'm mentally going through the contract in my head at this point. Then we're going to get to the page where we select the contingencies. And this is going to be, is it contingent on financing? We already talked about that. If it's contingent on financing, it's automatically contingent on appraisal. Well, not automatically. Sometimes there's some exceptions. Watch my video about what's the difference between inspections and appraisal. And then you're going to choose what inspections if you want them. So keep in mind from a seller standpoint, you know, the less inspections, the better. But from a buyer standpoint, you want to know that you are getting a good product with your purchase. And, you know, if there's things that are wrong, you know, that's going to be dollars out of your pocket. So you got to decide, you know, if it's a house that you love and you are going to be devastated if you don't get it, and you're willing to assume some risk, you know, in order to secure that house, then, you know, maybe not do as many inspections, or, you know, and some of the inspections that you can choose from, again, I'm not going to go into super detail with inspections right now, but the general house inspection, you can do radon, termites already kind of built into the contract as well, mold, and then, you know, any extra inspections. If there's a fireplace or chimney, I usually recommend we get that checked out as well. And then, you know, maybe there's pool, septic, well, all those, getting those checked out. Those are all very important, and maybe even septic and well could be required as part of your financing as well. So, but we'll talk about more of those things later, but those are some things you can make it contingent on. We'll talk about cost of those inspections and what to expect with those inspections as well. But, ooh, I kicked my stand. So there's those, and then home warranty. This is something that you can actually make your offer contingent on, is getting a home warranty. What is a home warranty, you may ask? So I'll give you my personal opinion. If you're able to not make an offer contingent on it, you may be better off, because if it's going to be one where we're going to be up against other offers, it's something that you can take off the plate, because you can get a home warranty on your own also. It's not something that just a seller has to purchase. You as a buyer can purchase that also. They're usually about $500, you know, $450 to $550, $580, you know, there's all different types, all different ones out there. What I'm going to say though is, if you want a home warranty, and some people really love them and swear by them, and I've had clients that have saved a lot from a home warranty, and basically they'll warranty certain things with the house, plumbing, electrical, sometimes appliances, depends on the policy that you get, things like that. And so, HVAC, furnace and air, those things. So, but you got to read the fine print. You got to feel comfortable with the one that you're choosing, and know what it offers, what it doesn't offer, and the price, and if you want that and how long you want it for. Typically they're a year, but I've had some multi-year ones done before as well. They're not going to cover everything, only certain things. So again, you've got to do your due diligence and research, and you got to do it ahead of time on all those different companies, because when we go to write a contract, if you want a home warranty, if that's something important to you, let's put it on there and we can check whether you're gonna pay for it or whether we want to ask the seller to pay for it, which a lot of people, do that as well. So we got to decide what we want to do, what's important to you. On the contract, you have to put the company that you would want the home warranty through and how much it cost. So you've got to do your research in advance to know what that is, because if we're writing a contract and you're like, oh, I do want a home warranty, and I'll say, okay, what kind do you want? It's going to take time. It's going to take time to figure out what that is. So I always tell people, let's look in advance. If the home warranty is something you want, awesome. Let's look into it in advance. Sometimes sellers offer a home warranty with it, and they have a set one that they've already, looked into, and this is the one they'd like to offer. That's great too. You don't have to take that one necessarily. You could, choose a different one. But sometimes the research is, they've already figured out that's the one they want to do, but that may have components that you don't want, or not enough of what you want, or basically you got to do your research on them and know what you're getting. I used to have pamphlets of different ones, but they're ever changing, and so it is honestly best to go to the websites of the home warranty companies, which I can provide you a list of the ones I'm familiar with, but there is a ton out there. So again, it's one of those that do you want your contract contingent on the home warranty or not? And we'll talk about the importance of that to you when we're doing our offer. The other thing that it can be contingent on is a repair amendment from the get-go. And so you've heard me talk about inspections, and from inspections there could be a repair that comes up. And again, another video for another day, because there's a lot to unpack on that one. But let's say we're walking through the house and there's a broken window, or there's which I just ran into this, actually ran into this a few times in the last couple of weeks, where there's some work to be scheduled to be done, but it's not done yet. For example, a roof. We were walking through a house and there was the roof quote right there, signed, it's ready to be done. They're just literally waiting for the shingles to arrive and the roofer to come and do the work. So it's scheduled to be done, but it's not done yet, or it's something defective that we see. If you want that done prior to closing, you want to make sure, or not even prior to closing, but you just want it done as a responsibility of the seller, we need to put that on the repair amendment. And that could be, that the seller pays for that and that goes into escrow at closing, or, you want that done before closing. The way the repair amendment reads is that it's supposed to be done, I don't have it directly in front of me, but I think it's within 5 days of closing. This has to be done. It's either 5 or 10 days. Need to reread that. But you can also, have an attorney change that as well if you want that done a little bit differently. We can certainly talk about that. And whether you're okay with the seller doing the fix, or you want the seller to hire a contractor to do that fix, or whatever that is. But if it is something, let's say the basement wall is bowing and it's bothering, you're like, hey, there's something going on with this basement. Let's figure it out and let's address it from the get-go with this, hey, here's our offer, but this here is really important. And if we can't figure this out with our offer, then we're not proceeding. And so instead of waiting, well, let's wait and see if that comes out on the inspection report, and we'll deal with it then at inspections. You're setting yourself up for a lot of stress if it's something you want to wait and deal with. Let's get it from the get-go and figure out and make sure we're on the same page of how that's going to be resolved or what the issue is. The next thing is subject to sale, subject to closing. So if you have a house that you need to sell in order to purchase this one, then we'll need to select the appropriate things there as well. And again, subject to sale is going to be another video to talk about the ins and outs with that. And so for those of you that are not in that situation, you won't have to click that one. Although if you're purchasing a house and may someday move, you may be in that situation. So it may be good to know at least how that works. So all of that is kind of things you need to know when writing your offer and putting your best foot forward. So you need to know the ins and outs of those things, like I talked about, and I'm here with you every step of the way to talk about them and explain them more in detail. But I wanted you aware from the get-go what that is. And so it's not just price. price is important, but those terms. And when I say terms, I mean the financing terms, the closing date terms, earnest money that you're putting down, inspections that you're doing, those contingencies. What is this contingent on? And those are all important that a seller is going to take into consideration when looking at your offer. So the making it the strongest offer possible. I would say the strongest offer possible is going to be above list price, cash, no contingencies, as is. Okay. And whatever closing the seller, some sellers want a long closing, some sellers want it done right away. That's going to be like your strongest offer. So we may not be able to beat that. And you just may not be able to if you're, depending on your situation and your finances. But maybe, we can come in with, okay, we've got our pre-approval here. Here's what we're willing to do. Here's what, and really come in with our strongest offer for this, and putting your best foot forward and knowing then that you did do that. And also then too, putting your best foot forward. What if something does fall through with the offer that beats you out? If you have your best foot forward, you could be, next in line if something does come back on the market, and they're going to be reaching out to you. Hey, you had a good offer before. Are you still willing to, consider this house? We may have moved on to another house at that point, and that's okay too. But I want my buyers to be the most confident, educated buyers out there that know, hey, we have our checklist of items done. We have read through this contract. We know what to expect. We know what we can do, what we can't do, and what terms are best in our situation for us, because you have to do what's best for you, but then also that you can also make appealing to a seller also. So just wanted to go over that with you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk again soon about more details and unpack some of that more and then nitty-gritty. Thanks.